Welcome back to the Militia Madness. Welcome back to the Militia Madness podcast, episode something. Um, I've just lost track. We film a couple of these in advance. I just stopped counting. Um, Today we'll be talking about combo decks and what they look like in our format, and what to look out for when you're. We'll talk about some pretty established combos in Pauper and maybe some new ones that
Yep.
existed with Marvel superheroes. Speaking of which, it is my turn for the card spotlight, and the card I wanted to talk about is Helicarrier Strike, which is 1 white mana for an instant. It's a common, obviously.
Yep.
It has Teamwork 2, which means there's an additional cost. It's kind of like Crew for instants and sorceries and creatures. Um, Basically, whatever the teamwork number is, you tap any number of creatures you control with total power, that or more, and then you get a benefit. In this case, it will deal 2 damage to target attacking or blocking creature, and if it was cast with teamwork, it'll deal 4 damage to it instead. I like this card a lot in the white control decks or the white mid-range decks. I think this card has a lot of potential. And I think cards like it are correctly underplayed. Just the 1 white mana deal 2 damage oftentimes is not enough to kill what you really wanted to kill. You have to like 2-for-1 yourself. It feels like a combat trick more than a removal spell.
Yeah.
Whereas this, I think, more fits removal spell um, that you can make a 2-1 like 2-for-1.
Yeah.
Right? Because you can block with the 2-1. You can like block and trade off with a 1 or 2 power creature, tap it to then deal 4 damage to something else. And I just think this card has a lot of potential.
Yeah, like I think just the ability to hit 4 when like a lot of the stuff deals 3 is very important.
Mm-hmm. It's like the white lightning bolt, kind of, sort of, not really.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I like this card a lot. I hope to play it in decks moving forward. Yeah, apart from that, we're going to be talking about combo decks. And I think where we need to start is the difference between what a combo is and what a synergy is.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good starting place. And then we'll get to, because a lot of like tribal decks, or really in our format, every deck will have some sort of synergy that works well. You know, the Bannerhide Crew Shock to keep putting counters on an evolution witness. To me, that's a synergy.
Yeah.
Because you don't, unless you're, you don't win the game on the spot with it. You can't create infinite whatever with it.
It's
But
not
it's
doing all
very,
that
very,
much.
yeah. But it's very, very powerful.
Yeah.
It's a synergy, right? Like it's good. To me, a combo is something that like a combination of cards that wins the game on the spot.
Yeah, or
A
at
synergy is
least I would
something
say like
that
makes
more
it
or less.
very likely anyway.
No, I normally let you have it, but no, I think a combo needs to be winning the game. Anything short of
Well,
something
the one
that,
I'm specifically thinking of is like Narset plus a Windfall. I would call that a combo, not a synergy, because that effectively wins you the game, but not literally does.
yeah, that's the one that I was thinking of. That like sure, but I don't know. There's still possibilities where they untap, kill your Narset, or do something. Like the game's not over. It's close to over, but it's not over. To me, it has to, you know, Shieldred Windfall. That to me is a
That only
combo.
does 14 damage.
True, but it puts you,
Yeah, it
bonus threat
effectively wins you the
14.
game, but it didn't literally win you the game. So I feel it's in a similar
All you
vein
need to
where
do
it should
is
be called a
all,
combo, but it's yeah,
yeah. Those exist. Like those are debatable, but like to me, something that's not is Kiki Jiki Pestermite.
yeah. That just wins you the game. That is a combo.
Yeah, just on the spot, right? And I think when you're in deck construction, that's what the difference between a combo and a synergy is. Is a combo is something that you're building towards to win the game,
Yeah,
not to
And
create
then
value, to create situations where you can then win the game. Because like you do need to back it up.
yeah, and notably too, we've also only talked about like couple card combos. There's also the concept of a whole combo deck, where your deck itself is the combo engine that all adds together to do a thing.
Yeah, in other formats like Modern or higher power formats than ours, that's where you're gonna get like 2-card combos. Like I think Splinter Twin is probably a combo deck that's fresh in people's mind, that like
Yeah.
people will recognize. It's like, oh, that's a combo, right? Where like Birthing Pod is kind of both. Like it's a combo card, but it's also a synergy
Yeah.
card.
And we have seen
You
it
know?
twice in Pauper. Once is right now, and before was sadistically
Mhm.
brewed scale. Now on Hawkeye's
Yeah.
bow, then Reacher Sky, whatever.
Yep. Well, Secret of
Secret
Skybreak was
Skybreak.
yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of the combos in our format are like 3, if not more cards.
Well, yeah, but these are the
3 is
two card combos that have been like insane.
yeah, the number in our format, I would say a lot of the times is 3.
Yeah.
And I would say let's
keep it
talk
fair.
about let's talk about some of those combos that exist, because I've played a lot on the channel. One of which is, I'm going to go in terms of not very known to very known. One thing that is legal in our format is the Goblin combo, which is actually like a 4-card combo, but the 4th card is very, very replaceable, which is any sack outlet. Typically, a Skirk Prospector means that the 4th piece is really redundant, but any sack outlet plus any goblin with persist, 1 day of class, first day of class.
Yep.
That 3 combo will give you infinite sack triggers with a Blood Artist and Impact Tremors. If it's Skirk Prospector, it means that an Invoker will kill you. But essentially, the way that works is the sack outlet, you cast first day of class, meaning that a creature's, for the rest of your turn, enter with a +1/+1 counter on it and have haste. Haste is not relevant for this instance. But sack outlet plus persist thing means you sacrifice the persist thing infinitely. It comes with a -1 counter and a +1 counter. They cancel each other out. It has no counters. Then you could sacrifice it again. This is kind of the basis for a lot of different things. With, I think we can just call it a persist combo, which plug and plays with a lot of things. If it's a green creature, Ivy Lane Denizen works.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of stuff. So that's one of the combos, typically in a Jund area, are the prerequisites a lot of the times. And then another one is maybe a little bit more common, which is the Presence of Gond. Is that the card, I think?
Yeah, Presence of Gond is tap, make a dude, so anything that untaps immediately combos with it.
Mm-hmm. The biggest one is Midnight Guard.
Yep.
Because whenever a creature enters the battlefield, it untaps itself, and then you make infinite ETB triggers with, again, something like Impact Tremors or
just have infinite dudes and go to your next turn if they don't have a
yeah,
white.
also that you can that's one that like by itself will kill people because you can make infinite attackers. Splintage one, really, where the persist combo doesn't do that. You do need a 4th thing to like do. You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, Presence of Dawn trigger's pretty good. Seeker of Skybreak has actually been infinite twice.
Yep.
Because there's the Hangerback Scrounger, I want to say.
It was the backup guy that let it like discard to draw when it tapped.
Yeah, whenever a creature becomes tapped, you can discard a card to draw a card. Plus Seeker of Skybreak means that you draw your whole deck. It's a May too, which is nice. Plus Fists of Flame was another combo, which actually, if they have infinite toughness or a significant amount of toughness, doesn't kill them.
Yeah.
But that's replaced with Hawkeye's Bow, which means whenever a creature becomes tapped, it deals 1 damage to an opponent. So with Seeker of Skybreak, you just kill your opponent immediately. That's the newest one. The other one that's seen a lot of play is Basking Brute Scale and Sadistic Glee, which also needs a third piece to kill someone.
Well, it also does make an infinitely big guy by itself, so...
Yeah, but oftentimes I find if you don't have Trample to back it up, is not good enough.
Yeah, but it's a good start.
Yeah, it means that you've now established a threat forever. Not an unkillable threat, because any black removal will just kill it.
Yep.
But, you do have like an infinite guy. But I've definitely played games where I didn't have the backup piece. I made an infinitely large guy and still lost.
Yeah, it also gave you infinite colorless mana, which there's a lot you can do with that.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Again, you need a backup. You need a third thing to make that lethal, but
immediately
that third thing can be a lot of different things. It can even be like Rancor can be your third thing, and then people are dead.
Yeah,
So,
I will say as somebody who's played a lot of combo decks, I think that one of the secrets to a good combo deck is having the options to do those less than lethal lines if your opponent's been disrupting you the whole game, because then it says, okay, well, you've used all your like disruption on my like fully lethal lines. This should be good enough.
Yeah. I just think Big Idiot, and I think we've had this conversation too, it's just not good enough to win a lot of games because a lot of decks have answers to Big Idiot.
Yeah.
Including Clue. Well, not Clue, but like Token I'm not using, or this thing, or whatever. But I think those are probably the most common Pauper combo decks, apart from like Walls, which...
Yeah, Walls has been around for a long time.
Which does exist in our format now because we have a 5-color commander, so it is worth talking.
Yep.
Inside Out, which is now legal again. Again, that 5-color commander really changed a lot in our format theoretically because now
it makes these wider, more my cards need to synergize together decks a lot more viable.
Mm-hmm. For sure, and you don't actually have to be 5-color.
Because hypothetically, that also does just make like a pretty okay like 3-color like regular traditional storm deck work, because it means in your red base like storming off you can just play Metamorphose now, and also if you give stuff flashback, she can give you 5 mana for free.
Yep, for sure. I also think that decks are in a position where like if you wanted to play Abzan and that's like your favorite thing to do, you can do it.
Yep, especially because like a lot of the stuff in Abzan has like activated abilities and stuff like that of like, hey, let's put some +1/+1 counters on me or some random stuff like that.
Well, even if you just never like, the commander is okay, but the commander's not good enough to be like warping around. Like, it doesn't make you play 5 colors, right? You can just be like, I'm playing Abzan. I have no red sources in my deck. I literally can't cast my commander. Or you have like a couple. I don't care about it. I'm not building around it. I just want to play like Abzan Soul Sisters because it's cool. I might do that.
Yeah, and then getting back to combo, like some of the other stuff that we've seen in the format is like stuff like the Familiars deck, so like making everything cheaper, and then just...
Does that work in our format? Do you have enough?
Honestly, you possibly could now that we have the 5-color commander, because that means you can do the Goblin and Narcomancer stuff too. Like, you're not limited to just like blue-white or just Goblin and Narcomancer. Like, you can probably find a mix. Because in Pauper, there are basically 2 Familiars decks that are doing the same thing in opposite colors. There's blue-white Familiars, and then there's Goblin and Archomancer Storm. And they're both just discounting everything, but just on opposite sides of the color spectrum.
Yeah. That's a good point. But that to me is the difference between a combo and a synergy. So let's talk about what combo decks look like. Because I think they can really... We talked about tempo decks riding the difference between aggro and control. I don't think combo decks rides the difference between aggro and control. I think they ride the line between turbo and control.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is there are some combo decks that are like all in on assembling, like all in on assembling A plus B, and once I do that, I win the game, you're dead. Living End, to me, is an example of that. Dredge is kind of an example of that, or something like that. And then there's the combo decks that I like to play, which are I'm going to interact, make sure I don't die, maybe even have a control finish that I can do, But another thing I'm going to do is be prepared to do A plus B eventually and kill you like that.
Yeah.
We talked about the beginning of the show. Splinter Twin was like my ideal version of that. I'm going to control, I'm going to kill when I need to kill, and then, oops, Pestermite Splinter Twin, you're dead.
Yeah, and I think this does like tangent something that I did kind of want to talk about, which is like the sectioning of how combo decks work, because I kind of thought about it for a second earlier, and I don't know if I'm going to remember the exact terminology I wanted to use, but I kind of felt like there are 3 different like varieties of combo decks, which is I'm going to rush to assemble my couple of pieces that just go off. So like that would be like what we were talking about with like the Brood Scale or the Hawkeye's Bow combo, where it's like I'm going to rush and then just kill you when I get it. Then there's the Splinter Twin style, which is the I'm going to hold back until eventually you're weak enough that you won't be able to fight me on it, and then I'll just win. And then there's the last one, which is basically just the Hail Mary, which if you look at a deck like, if this is because of where it comes to my experience most, is like the current version of Ruby Storm in Modern or something like that, where it's like, or what we were just talking about, like the Goblin and Narcomancer or Familiar Storm, where it's like, I'm going to put down a couple of things, and they're going to get me to my next thing, and that's going to get me to my next thing, and that's going to get me to my next thing, and I might win.
I would put those in the turbo.
Yeah, I put that a little different than the turbo for pieces, because that's, with those you can generally be like, okay, I have half my thing, I can cool down a little bit. With this, it's like, okay, I gotta figure out when the best moment to pop off is, and I'm not doing anything until I pop off.
You're still like all in on that idea of a combo finish, rather. Storm is weird. Storm is actually something I was going to talk about in our own podcast, because I do think it's almost its own demon to talk about, because it's weird, because it's kind of like a turbo combo deck, but it also can be built in such a way where it's a mid-range deck or it's a control deck that does, it's odd, because it can interact if it wants to. As somebody who plays a lot of Vintage Cube and who watches a lot of people draft a Vintage Cube, I've never seen 2 Storm decks drafted by almost the same person end up the same way.
Yeah.
Storm is just an oddity wrapped up in a contradiction put in a bow.
I think that can also be true about like a lot of combo decks, where it's like you have to like look at what your win cons for your combo are and say, how much am I able to interact with my opponent before I am now not focused on my combo enough? So like you'll see stuff like a lot of like more stormy decks like playing a couple of like removal spells that are also just happenstance also help themselves a little bit. So you'll see like if we look at like what's it called? Sorry. Why can't I see? If we look at like the Familiars deck, they're playing Force Snap as their removal spell because it can also bounce their like Mole Drifters to draw them cards and stuff like that.
Yeah. It just feels, to me, it feels like its own distinction, and there's enough characteristics of Storm that are not necessarily characteristic of every combo deck.
That's why I think it's a part of its own like combo category, and that's why I put it in its own like we're just going to be tumbling through rather than in the same as the A plus Bs.
I just think it's different enough at a certain point, because it's like if someone came to me and go, "Here's my 11 card combo," you're not. That's too many cards.
Well, yeah, it's not an 11 card combo, but it is a combo deck, and that's what I think is the important distinction there. The deck itself is built as an engine. It is not a couple cards that are like a perpetual motion machine. Because
it's more of like several little synergies that come together to like win a game. Whereas like a combo, you could be like, oh, I see this. Whereas like a Storm line, I think that a lot of the combo decks that exist in our format are just so different from Storm that it's almost worth just talking about Storm in its own episode, which we will be doing, regardless of what Morgan wants. We'll be doing it, because I think Storm in our format just looks so much different than it does in every other format. Although maybe it's there now because of the 5-color commander deck. That 5-color commander changed everything. That should have been my spotlight. But to me, it's much more like, I think the more common ones that you'll see in this format, although again, that 5-color commander is legal, is the Basking Brood Scale Worlds and the Secret of Skybreak, stuff like that. Also,
I guess if we do want to talk about one that's also specific to our format, is we have Longfen, who also does the Basking Brood Scale combo. So like there are commander-specific combos that we have in our format.
There are definitely, for sure, commander-specific combos, but there are almost just too many commanders to like.
Oh yeah, but it was good to like mention that like that is something interesting of the format.
Long Fang in particular, especially one that's on our channel. Go check that out. Plug.
And then Rocco's also just good for that kind of thing because he can just say really any combo I can tutor.
Mm-hmm. Rocco's also just I think we should have mentioned Rocco on the mid-range episode or the aggressive episode too. Rocco's just good. But yeah, there's like what was I gonna say? I don't think I guess we should talk about whether we think combo decks being present in a format is good or bad. Because to me, it depends on how oppressive the combo is.
Yeah.
Like Splinter Twin got banned out of Modern, I think justly so. And then Birthing Pod did too. I think because I think this is a good time to talk about Hawkeye's Bow in our format.
Yeah.
Because there was a big buzz around regular Pauper, whether Secret of Skybreak needed to go, whether Hawkeye's Bow needed to go.
Yeah, and I think it still needs to like wait to be seen and just have some time to like see what's going on.
I would agree. I get their dilemma because if it's bad, they've now ruined two big Pauper events that Pauper events don't pop up that often. So if it's bad for the format, Paupergeddon and then the other Pauper, big Pauper event is now ruined with this one deck. So I get Gavin's. Gavin Verhey actually made a great post about it. Go check that out. I'm not going to link it because I'm not going to look for it.
Yeah.
But his sentiment is my sentiment is it's not so black and white to say we should always do this or we should always do this.
It's like just because you can see it and out like with Cranial Ram, like a place where it does go awful does not mean you should be always playing around that scenario. And I think giving people a second to experiment with it to see if that is the case is a thing. I feel like
even that mentality, like it's a harder decision to make because even that mentality is flawed because we don't have Pauper events all that often, and it is a bad player experience when it feels like Wizard sits by and tries to put it on the players to fix the problem of their broken cards. And it's like, well, you made a card that there's nothing we can do to player. I don't know what they should do either, to be clear. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying it's much more of a difficult decision than I think people are giving it credit for.
Yeah, because I'm personally on the side that I think at the end of the day, this will probably end up being fine, but I'm not going to get into the whole ethics because I don't play enough Pauper to like have like a super informed opinion. It's just my current opinion. But what I do want to move on to, that is what we started with the topic, which is how good is it to have combo decks in a format? And I think what sets a good combo deck in a good combo deck that is good for the format is its ability to be interacted with without having to go all the way out of your way. So if we look at like some other formats, like the combo decks that stay and don't get banned or like don't get heavily banned are the ones that are like, oh, it does a little cheeky stuff with its graveyard, so everybody who's packing like some graveyard hate can interact with it, so it's not gonna like hyper go out of the way. Or okay, it needs to resolve this one spell, so like if you sit down for a second and be like, I'm gonna put a couple like counter spells on my sideboard that I would probably play anyway, I can interact with it at least on some level rather than feeling like I'm having to put in a 4 of like a card that is only for this matchup to feel competitive against it.
Yeah. That's a great point. Wrapped up my thoughts about it entirely is Secret of Skybreak is a 2/1 creature.
Yep.
Very interactable with.
Lava Dart that motherfucker.
Bolt it or like any red removal kills it, any black removal kills it, any counterspell does a thing. Instant speed enchantment removal will work too. So in our format, it might accidentally die to like sideboard heritage reclamations, which people are bringing in anyways.
Yep. And like if you compare it to the comparable combo that got banned out of Modern, which was Splinter Twin, that was so oppressive because it was in blue, so they had counterspells, and their combo piece was a 1/4 with flash that they were putting on it when the most common removal spell was Lightning Bolt, which made it just you had to go so far out of your way to interact with specifically Deceiver, Exarch, Splinter Twin that a lot of times people were barely even playing Pestermite for it, and sometimes even going as far as playing Bounding Krasis as their extra second one so that it didn't die to like haphazard stuff that just dealt 1 damage.
Yeah. For sure. So I think I'm with you as well. Is I don't know if it's going to be a problem or not, but you and I also are not like in the know-how of like what's going on in regular Pauper. I would want to listen to someone like Andrea Mangucci's opinion because I think his opinion would carry much more weight. Gavin Verhey's on the Pauper format panel, or their opinions would carry much more weight. But I did want to bring that up now because it's a buzz in that community right now. So I wanted to get your thoughts or my thoughts out there.
I actually did watch an Andrea Mangucci video of him playing that deck against like the mono blue deck, and like looking at it, like this could just be an isolated instance of the game, but this felt like every time it was, if his opponent had literally any interaction in his hand at all, the combo is basically unviable, and he was just having to play as a red-green value deck.
Yeah, which he came into the game expecting to do. You know, he talked about writhing crystals in that deck. I saw that video as well.
Yeah.
So, and if that's what that deck looks like, I mean, I think that's fair.
Yeah, just like be a value deck with a combo potential.
Yeah, that can win the game without it, but is made stronger because it's in there. I think that's fine.
Yeah, because I was actually just looking at like some Pauper lists on MTGO that were like doing okay, and I saw one was literally just the Callgate deck, but they were splashing both red and green for the combo.
That's hilarious. Yeah, that is not an outcome that I would want.
Oh, I would not want that either. It's a very specific thing about the Callgate deck is they can name any color of mana.
Yeah. But if people, yeah. But that's another thing is like, how interactive is this combo and how ubiquitous is it?
Yeah.
Is it splashable in everything?
Which I don't think it is.
No, I don't think it is either. But that's another downside. And the other, it's why I think Storm is its own unique thing, is because a lot of combo decks interact on an axis that can be dealt with, where Storm can't be dealt with nearly as easily for a lot of different decks. A lot of different decks are just sitting there waiting for you to fizzle, or it's also non-deterministic, right? Which is both.
Well, there are deterministic versions of Storm, but it's because like that's one of the reasons why I always played Gift Storm, is because it did make the combo deterministic.
If you play gifts, yes.
Yeah. Which that was always something I enjoyed. But the reason why I think it is a rectangle square thing is like there are hard combo decks, like 2-card combo decks, but there are just the umbrella of combo decks, which fits both Storm and these combo decks we've been talking about. Mm-hmm. But like they're under the same rectangle umbrella, but they do not fit into the same box that I did not realize you were trying to specifically go for with this topic. I thought we were talking about the rectangle, not the square.
No, I think it's because I think we can squeeze another episode talking about Storm, because I think there are enough differences. Because to me, Storm has that like a lot of classic Storms, and especially Storm in our format, I think is going to fit into that category of you have this one turn, Godspeed, or you've been playing towards this one turn, and it didn't. It's interesting what the Storm decks look like.
Yeah,
they probably look a lot better now that we have a 5-color commander. So they're not as terrible, but Storm is also just hard to operate in Pauper because I think when it's the best things, it's toxically the best thing in Pauper, which is why when you look at the Pauper ban list and our ban list as well, Storm card. Yeah,
it was heavily evidenced in the most like recent like thing of the unbanning and rebanning of High Tide, where they were like, okay, the only reason why this doesn't have good enough numbers is because people aren't playing it well enough. It is being too meta dominant in its play rate, and it's just people fucking themselves over that is causing it to not be as good as it should be.
Yeah.
And that is like one of the things about Storm compared to the other combo decks is it requires an ability to like read into the probability to optimize your chances of success, while like a lot of the other combo decks you can just be like, I'm going to just hold on and then eventually like my combo can come to me. This is, you have to be like, okay, what is like the small edge I need to get to this part of the combo deck, or to the combo of Storm, and that is the hard part about it. And it's something that when you're mentioning like you effectively like mentioned like silver bullets to take out these combos, and that's not exactly how it works in Storm. And there is a small caveat to that, is I think there are a lot more silver bullets against Storm style decks, but you have to know when to properly activate them. Because as somebody who's played a lot of like Storm style decks, is I've had many people have the exact silver bullet that would stop me from winning the game, and they just pop it too early or pop it too late, and then they don't win because they just used their silver bullet wrong.
Yeah, it's just against Storm in particular, it's especially at Pauper rarity. There's just so many different times that you're given the opportunity and having to have the right silver bullet, because against Ruby Storm, this is really good. But against this Storm deck, it's not. Graveyard Interaction is sometimes good, sometimes bad. There's no card at Pauper that there's no rule of law, right? Like that's always going to be good against Storm decks, but those tools are very rarely given to players at Common, and thank God, because that sounds miserable.
Which, as a fun note, as a modern Storm player, I actually loved playing into rules of law because people felt way too safe under them.
Yeah, but you're out to storm out against rule of law is still like, I have to deal with the rule of law. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's still a good card. Like, if you could choose to play against the Storm player and have a rule of law in play or not have a rule of law of play, you'd always choose the world where you have the rule of law in play.
Yeah. Well, like, especially in modern day, like, the actual better thing than, like, rule of law, like, is stuff like Orum's Chant, because you can time it properly so that people have invested enough. The thing about, like, this is getting into, like, very much specific Storm nuance. The thing about, like, having, like, a rule of law style effect that stops somebody from comboing off before they even begin means that they aren't putting any resources in it. The best way to stop a combo deck is to stop them after they put some resources into it, so they can't just say, this is actually good as a reference for the 2-card combo decks as well. If you're saying, like, oh, I'm just going to prevent you from ever, like, I don't know exactly like what it would be, but it's like, my way to stop it is so that you will just hold these cards in your hand forever and not be able to actually get them down. Eventually, if you bust through that, you still have the cards in hand and are able to get them and win the game. But if they're like, okay, you got one down, now it's completely removed, now you don't have to worry about that piece until you draw another one.
It's one of those things that we've been saying since we started the podcast, which is you need to back stuff up.
Yeah.
You know, you need to, especially if you're being disruptive, you need to be disruptive with a 5/5 in play, or you need to be disruptive with a flyer in play, you know. And I think that's true with, against most combo decks. Pauper, it's a little different. I think what your threat is can just be, well, I have a 2/4.
Yeah.
And a disruptive piece, so you're dead. I'm just going to keep attacking you, right? Like, whatever the thing is can be a little bit less powerful. But yeah, a lot of decks, I've learned this being a control player, is sometimes it's not good enough to counterflux that one turn.
Yep.
If you have nothing in play, they will eventually draw cards to kill you again. You need to put a Vendilion Click into play. You need a Snapcaster Mage. You need something to be like, all right, the game's now over.
Yeah, because, like, a lot of times against, like, combo decks, like, my out was, okay, you go for, like, fully counter my stuff, and then it's like, okay, but then I'll just make, like, 5 goblins, and you've used all of your stuff to stop my combo turn. What are you going to do about 5 goblins?
Which I think is why, like, Chatterstorm and stuff like that are banned in Pauper, because, you know, it's really hard to answer those kinds of things. But I think, I'm in favor of, I think a lot of, Storm aside, I think a lot of characteristics of combo decks in our format is a lot of them are creature-based, and a lot of them can be interacted with. There's no, like, that I can think of, toxic combo decks that are the best thing in our format and can't be interacted with on an axis that is already intuitive to a lot of players, right? Creature removal stops a lot of combos. Graveyard hate stops a lot of combos. So I think in our format, they're perfectly fine. We'll see what the future holds. And the Militia Council has always been pretty good about, you know, I think we have our own little thing where we can go and be like, I think this is a problem, and the other two will weigh in. So we're pretty good about stepping in when we need to. But I think that's a pretty good identifier of combo, where it's combo is one of those things where it's not a deck list. It's one of the first archetypes we've looked at where it's very much, how am I ending the game?
Yep, that's the thing that's most centered around, like, what defines combo.
Yeah. which like a tempo deck can end the game several different ways. A mid-range deck can do the same thing. Combo is one of those where like, no. Regardless of what this game plays out, I am doing this. Where I think tempo and mid-range would be like, I'll be told what I'm going to do when the game starts. Whereas like combo's like, no. I have a plan going in.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm going to be,
I just thought of an analogy, which is that tempo decks are a plane, combo decks are a helicopter. There's been like a very good thing which shows like the aerodynamics of a helicopter, and it's that it is punching the air so hard that it's forcing itself to fly, while a plane is actually riding the currents and like going with them. And I think combo exemplifies that very well.
Yeah. You're going into being like, this is how I'm going to win the game. I can do this, maybe. Mid-range combo decks I think have existed and will continue to exist. But I think that's a pretty good analogy.
Yeah, because like if you make your deck too heavy, it won't get off the ground.
Yeah, coming up in the week, we have the Militia for the Marvel superheroes, I think, right? That's what we're doing next.
Yeah, and I think my deck is insane for it, but we'll see how that plays in practice.
Morgan is bringing, on Monday, you will see my deck tech, which is going to be something a little spicy, because I don't think I'm going to win, because I think Morgan's commander, not to give anything away, but Morgan's commander is a little busted.
It looks really good. And my first thought, what I thought was like, oh, this will probably be a good thing. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, oh, wait, no, this ability does so much more.
Yeah. Morgan is playing one of the commanders that I think we'll see how it goes, but I have a couple of potential bans that I wanted to suggest to the council in a couple weeks. Morgan's commander is one of those that is definitely on my list. But check out that deck tech on Wednesday, not giving anything away.
Yep.
Game plan Friday as usual. My name's Hunter.
I've been Morgan.
Reminding you to like, comment, subscribe, and signing out.